when you think about it, I'm wearing sunglasses, I'm in the dark, and I'm looking at this little flame. It's like being a detective. You keep the heat on till the steel talks, you know. It starts telling you stuff, and you listen, and it takes a lot of patience, because they take a lot of time to make. And just making up your own world. I think everybody wants to make up their own world. My name's Bill Reid. I'm a sculptor, and I live in Racine. I make things out of steel in general. I do painting too, and I usually paint the steel. And I like stories. I like making things. I really like that idea. So I actually did a little aluminum casting at the beginning and got into that whole type of thing. And then I went back to welding, like arc welding, big wire structures and big things. And for actually about 30 years now, I've been making things out of sheet metal with wire cages, animals, and story-related things. I like that because you can do mechanical things with them. They can be really light, but they're really strong, and it gives me lots of opportunities. I think the story thing gives it an extra dimension of just being a sculpture. They often start with a pun, or it's usually just a sketch, but it's often based on words. I think the English language is so wacky, because how can pie be something good to eat, and also this really cool number? And then there's pie rats too, making this honey badger, like a forest of pies, pie rats, and all sorts of goofy stuff. But I usually, if I'm starting a beast, I'll start with the trunk, the middle part, and build out. I'll build that, then do the head, then do the legs, usually put nice shoes on them, then do the arms, kind of build out from the center out, because that body just determines how big the whole thing's going to be. I might want to just start with an idea that I want to make a mechanical thing. I'll just make a little vehicle thing with the movement, and then figure out what kind of creature to put on it. It's fun to do different stuff, I guess. I don't want to do the same thing over and over. I'm basically working with wire, really thin, like 1/8 inch usually, and sheet steel, 24 gauge steel. And I usually make a wire structure, usually with a silhouette. Like if I'm doing a fish, I'll do the silhouette of the fishy, and then fill it in with the wire, and then lay it on the sheet steel, draw the patterns, cut it out. And I use an oxyacetylene torch. It's seriously hot, but it's a really tiny little flame. And the nice thing is, it's just steel to steel. I don't need flux or anything. It's just steel, and the steel wants to melt together. Steel is very friendly. When they're ready to paint, what I'll do is I'll run the torch over it and knock off any scale. And then I bang it, actually, to really knock off anything else that's loose. And then I put a good primer on it to protect it from rusting. And then I actually use like hardware store water-based enamel paints. And they're nice, they don't have fumes, and you can really play with them almost like watercolor. You can do lots of layers. Kids ask me how many I've done. I must have done at least 4,000 sculptures, because I've been doing over 100 a year for 35 years or something. It adds up. The last year or so, I've been doing bunions and Hawaiians. If you had an onion suit on, you'd be crying, right? So these are Hawaiian onions dressed up in bunnies, or looking like bunnies, and selling their tears on the street, or carving up rainbows, or trying to make a living somehow or another. So that's one of my favorite things of the last year. I did a big owl, like a really 6-foot tall owl. He's got a big flamingo flying over the top of his head, and there's a crank, and the flamingo's wings go up and down. Also, I did another one with owls again, a little one, and it's 3 owls, like they're migrating. So you turn the crank, and they're all going through, but their wings flap up and down. The bee-bomb was the most ambitious thing. The car is a legit road car. It was built on a 1988 Ford Escort, and it doesn't look anything like it, but it is certified to drive. That was probably my most ambitious project ever, just because I didn't mess anything up mechanically with it. The pedal cars are fun because they're bicycles. I love bicycles. They're simple, they're easy to fix, and they're fairly efficient. The first one I made, the Reidster, We actually made the frame. I had help from an engineer friend, but we made it from the frame up, total, even the frames made by hand and the kingpins and all that. And they used wheelbarrow tires, and I made it's a little anteater, and it goes along really nice. And then there's Moby, like a Moby Dick, the great white whale. Just trying to scare you. I like do something different. And there's something really goofy when you see these things moving through space instead of just another static sculpture or monument. To see them moving through the sky, through the air, is really, it's just a whole nother dimension to me. I think it's funny. I get a lot of, you must have a lot of time on your hands, but many people I think they get a smile out of them. It's kind of a different language. I try to learn from the things, what I think works in my mind. And the idea of finding things, a new story, new character, just, I mean, it's great to be alive and doing stuff fun like this, and I'm lucky.